Welcome to my nursery grand finale. I have done several videos on our smart nursery because this is the most dialed in room in the house. It's a beautiful dance between automations, scenes, and then manual control, all for the comfort and efficiency for raising our son Connor, and his comfort as well, of course. So today, let's put this baby to bed.
I'm Patrick Hunt, and I want you to like smart home tech as much as I do. Real solutions with Matter, Apple Home, and a little creativity. Weekly, I'll show you how small upgrades can make a big difference. Welcome.
So you did all the research, you bought all the furniture, you decorated, but now it's time for the tech that's going to keep you and your child comfortable with your new living situation. Our son is 15 months old now, which means that we're far enough out that I can still look back and remember how we operated in those early days. The newborn amnesia hasn't exactly wiped my memory yet, but it's still new enough for us that we're using a lot of the same devices and we have a lot of the same routines. This room makes good use of all of the smart home systems, so lighting, security and safety, climate and environment, and then the methods of control, automations, scenes, Apple devices, and manual control as well. And then I'm also including what I'd call smart adjacent tech. And these are devices that don't integrate into your smart home system, but new parents are definitely going to want these in that first year. Let's jump right in with probably the most important part of your nursery tech, and that's lighting. Big lights to light up the whole room, a lamp for dim ambient lighting, and then night lights. A lot of these smart bulbs at 1% are great for night lights. But then a lot of these devices want to double as night lights as well, so there's going to be no shortage of night lights in your nursery. We used Philips Hue white and color bulbs because an often overlooked use is actually entertainment. Connor loves to see the lights change colors. And then the battery-powered Eve flare, which can be used for task lighting. It can get very dim for diaper changes or story time, and of course, it doubles as a little night light. It's also a great source of entertainment because it also changes colors. Next, we have climate and comfort, and this is a big category for a nursery. I know in the first few months you may have a bassinet next to your bed, and maybe you start transitioning into the nursery during nap times during the day, but those first few nights where you've transitioned into the nursery for bedtime can be very scary. You want to make sure everything's perfect. So for temperature, humidity, and air quality, I stuck the Eve room right to the side of the crib itself, so I know the exact temperature that Connor is experiencing at any given time. What's great about having a temperature sensor in here like the Eve room is that I actually don't need a smart thermostat in order to use it. This is just giving me information about the room, and then I can manually adjust my thermostat as needed. And we tried to keep them at a comfortable 72 degrees. If the Eve room is reporting poor air quality conditions, we can run our air purifier in here. And that brings me to our first SwitchBot device, the air purifier table. It's also a wireless phone charger and of course a night light. This also measures the air quality of the room, but in a different way than the Eve room. So between the two of them, you can always make sure that the air quality in your nursery is extremely safe for your child. On the highest speed, the fan for the air purifier does get a little loud, but it ends up being kind of a brown noise machine, so that's fine. This is the first of several SwitchBot devices that we have in this room. The next is the blind tilts and the curtain 3. So we actually have both blinds and curtains in this room, which might be a little bit of overkill because we open and close them both at the same time every time. These are a bit loud when they're operated, so I don't recommend trying to discreetly open or close these if you have maybe a sleeping baby. So we always try to make sure they're closed before we come in the room, or make sure that he's awake before we open up the blinds and the curtains. They do have what's called a quiet drift mode that's slower and quieter, but I used it one time and the curtains didn't close all the way. I think they got stuck on some of the grooves of the rod. We do have a couple scenes and automations that we use to control these, and I'll come back to those. All of the SwitchBot devices do require a hub in order to integrate them into Apple Home through Matter. I'm using the SwitchBot Hub 3, which I actually use as a scene controller to run a few of those scenes, and that's actually located down in our living room. Next, I want to briefly talk through some smart adjacent technology before getting into security and scenes and automations. First is the baby monitor. We went with the Owlet Dream 2, which is a camera and a sock which monitors breathing and heart rate. The sock has a base station that would scream at you if something went awry, but every single time it was because it got loose on his foot or he pulled it off. But this device alone had a very surprising use for us. As a new parent, you're often wondering, when can I put my baby down? Is he asleep? If I put him down, is he gonna wake up and freak out? We found that by using the sock and watching his heart rate in real time in the app, we could decide whether it was okay to put him down or if he was still kind of awake. So if his heart rate was in the 130s or higher, don't put him down. He's definitely still awake and you might freak out. But if he was in the 120s or lower, then he was safe to put down. You got a green light, go eat or something. The camera cord does have a built-in temperature sensor which we were never really able to mount in a meaningful place. So it always laid on the floor and the temperature read about 2 to 3 degrees lower than what it really was in here. And it couldn't integrate into Apple Home, which means we couldn't create any automations. Other than this, it was a pretty typical baby monitor that we could monitor from our phone. Then there's the Hatch, which is full of a lot of features, but for us, it was really just a brown noise machine, and it played lullabies, and of course it's also a nightlight. I integrated this into Apple Home through HomeBridge, so it is actually part of one of our scenes. I don't love that in order to get all of the features out of it, you had to subscribe to a monthly subscription called Hatch Plus, but we just avoided using those features, and we haven't missed anything really. Next we have outlets with built-in USB-C ports. I highly recommend getting some outlets like this. You just have so many devices that can be plugged in through USB-C, and you can forego using that power brick and cluttering up the outlet area. It's also great to have next to the rocking chair so you can charge your phone. We often found that our phone was dying because we had the Owlet app open all the time and it was just killing our battery. If you do get the SwitchBot air purifier table, this does have that wireless charger, so you could just use that as well. Okay, back to the real smart tech. Next we have security, which will lead us right into control via automations. We have a contact sensor on his door. In the future, when Connor is able to get up and leave his bed, we can configure an automation to send us a message when the door is opened, say after we've put him to bed. So we'll always know if he's getting up and leaving his room in the middle of the night. But currently this contact sensor is used in automations as a condition for when Connor is asleep, since we always close his door when we put him down to sleep. I explained this automation in great detail in my Introduction to Automations video, which I have linked. Additionally, it can be used to set the perfect temperature for when your child is sleeping, among loads of other things you want to either have happen or not happen while your child is sleeping, given that you do close the door when you put him down and keep it open otherwise. Another automation that we have in here is Connor's bedtime. This is extremely useful once you have that set routine. So at 7:20 p.m. every night, the blinds close, the curtains close, and bright lights turn on in the nursery. And the lights are so we can get him in his PJs and get him ready for bed. This is where that dance between automations and scenes really shines. The automation prepares the room for bedtime, and then my wife sits with Connor in the nursing chair and presses our secret button, which triggers the goodnight scene. The scene dims the lights in the nursery from those bright lights that we had on, turns on the Hatch to play a lullaby, and then it turns off any upstairs lights that we might have on. And then she can read him a bedtime book and put him down for the night, and then manually turn off the lights on our way out of the room. Some other scenes we have in this room: bright in nursery, dimmed in nursery, night light in nursery. A fun one is called Tokyo in nursery. That naming came from Philips Hue, and it's just some fun colors. But then we have Wake Up Connor and Nap Time. Wake Up Connor turns off the Hatch, turns on the lights, opens the blinds, and opens the curtains, whereas Nap Time does the exact opposite. Neither of these are connected to an automation, and in the early days, you really don't want them to be automated. You would hate for a time-based automation to run and open the curtains and wake up a sleeping baby. This brings me to our scene controllers, one of which is the SwitchBot Hub 3 that we have in the living room. If I know we're heading upstairs to put Connor down for a nap, I can just run the nap time scene from there, and the room will be ready by the time we get upstairs. The next scene controller is that hidden button next to the nursing chair. This really just runs the Goodnight Connor scene, but I could have it run 2 other scenes if I programmed it to. The last scene controller is actually the wall switch, and this is the Innovelli White Series dimmer switch. This also has a favorites button on it, which can be configured to single press, double press, and long press for 3 different actions. It also can turn the big lights on or off or dim them, but I want to bring attention to the long press on that favorites button. This is where I've configured scenes to be toggled. I'm specifically saying toggled and not enabled. When long pressed, this button will run one of 2 scenes. Either Wake Up Connor, and it'll open the blinds, the curtains, turn the lights on, turn off the Hatch, or Nap Time, close the blinds, the curtains, turn off the lights. This was made possible by converting my action to a shortcut on the long press. First, I get the blind's current position. If they're less than 50% open, sometimes they sit at around 1 or 2%, then run the Wake Up Connor scene. Otherwise, if the blinds are greater than 50%, then set the nap time scene. Having this functionality right on the wall for manual control is completely necessary, so you can run either of these scenes with absolute ease whenever you want. You might notice that I don't have any motion sensors in here, and that's because there was never a light or device that I always wanted triggered. by motion. You find that moving around a nursery can be a very delicate situation sometimes. You would hate for one of your smart devices to be the reason that your child wakes up when you don't want them to wake up, or just generally makes working in the nursery harder than it has to be. And then similarly, there's no Apple device like a HomePod or a HomePod mini. This was a very purposeful decision. These things can go rogue sometimes and make noise, and we just didn't want to be dealing with that in the nursery. So that is our ultimate smart home nursery for 2025. Good luck to all you new parents. If you have any questions or need some guidance, I'm here to help. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.